Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by one of our sister. So this is the narration of the story that she sent to me. The message that she sent to me, it reads like this. Hello, my brother, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? My brother, I have come here on your platform so that I can confess to you the reason as to why I am married to the man that I am married to. So, as for my husband, I never expected that I was going to get married to him because in the village from where I come from, I was bullied from primary school, and it got so worse when I was now in secondary school because most of my classmates, they would laugh at me because they said that I was unattractive and there was no boy who wanted to be seen hanging around me, because then people would start to laugh at that boy saying, "What are you doing with this ugly girl?" So this made me to almost hate myself and to hate everyone who laughed at me, who used to bully me. So after we had finished our high school, I then started to experience that same problem whereby there was no one who wanted to date me. This made me to get more angry, and there was this other boy whom I used to love a lot, but I knew that there was no chance for me to be with him because he was chasing after this other young girl. She was like the most beautiful girl in our village, and everyone knew that one day these two, they were going to get married. So this guy, after he had completed his high school, he had been taken by his relatives and he was now staying in the city. So regularly he would come, and each and every time he would come, he was more handsome with each and every visit that he would pay us in the village. And I kept on falling in love with him, but there was no hope for me. The only guys that I could date, there were those broke guys that were actually heading the cattle in the village, and this made people to laugh at me even more because they did not see any future. They just thought that I was going to get married to a broke guy, but I wanted to change my own destiny, and indeed I ended up changing my own destiny. There was this other time when this guy came, like the guy that I eventually got married to. When he came back home, this on this other particular trip, I then met him. He was looking for that beautiful girl that he was in love with, but I knew that this pretty girl, she was now dating a lot of guys that had money. So when he met me along the way, he asked me about the whereabouts of the love of his life, and I started to tell him a lot of bad stuff about the love of his life because this was a perfect opportunity to be with him. I was really feeling nervous because I knew that what I was doing, he was going to hate me. But anyway, I just kept on telling him everything that I knew was going to make him hate this pretty girl, and I was just hoping that maybe he was going to come to me and he was going to tell me that he wanted to date me, and he was really heartbroken. So as we were walking, that was when we came across my grandmother, and when we came across my grandmother, I was really scared that she was going to beat me later on that day, saying that, "What are you doing with that boy?" But to my surprise, the way that my grandmother greeted me and this boy, we saw that she was actually smiling. Instead of being angry, she was happy. She then went her way, and immediately I returned back home, and I was like nervous because I thought that maybe my grandmother was going to beat me up. But to my surprise, when I arrived back at the compound, my grandmother started to tell my mother and everyone that was there who wanted to listen about how my grandmother had saw me with this other fine boy, and now I was proving a point that I was not ugly as people used to tell me, but I was actually someone who was beautiful. And my grandmother kept on encouraging me to date this boy. So since my grandmother had placed me in that situation whereby she made me to look as if I was dating this fine boy, I just also acted as if I was dating this boy, but it was just a lie. After I had confirmed this lie to my grandmother, then she called me to her bedroom. We spoke a lot. I then told my grandmother that yes, I was in love with this boy, but the problem was that there was this other pretty girl in our village who was also trying to steal this man away from me. But my grandmother then told me that she had already sorted it out. She then told me that she knew that this young beautiful girl, she was going to give me problems one day. So what she had done was that one day when she saw that the most beautiful girl in our village was going to bath herself at the river, then my grandmother started to follow this girl. When she finally arrived at the river, my grandmother then hid herself at the nearby bushes until this girl had finished bathing herself. And after she had finished bathing herself, my grandmother waited until she had walked away. My grandmother went to that same exact spot where she had been bathing herself. Then my grandmother made some poo, and she then kicked her poo into the river. She then placed a curse on top of that girl's lives, and she said that as I am kicking this poo into the river, so am I kicking your life into this river. As this poo is going to be taken away by the river, I want you to know that nothing that you are going to do in life is going to succeed. As this poo is being taken away by the river, then know that any man that you're going to get involved with in a relationship, then that man is also going to be taken away from you, just like what this poo is being done, just like as this poo is being taken away by the river. So this is the curses that my grandmother had already placed on this girl, and that is the reason as to why she was busy sleeping around. It was because of that curse. My grandmother did not want her to fall pregnant to get married. My grandmother wanted to see her suffer, because for a very long time people had been calling her the most beautiful girl in the village, and people had been calling me the most ugliest girl in the village. And for this, my grandmother actually wanted to punish this very beautiful girl in our village. And after she had told me all of this stuff, I got so interested, and I told her that I wanted her to strengthen my relationship with this boyfriend of mine. And my grandmother told me that she had everything planned out, and she told me that she was going to assist me. She then took this other small bag that she kept her herbs inside. My grandmother then took this bag which contained all of her charms, and she was busy taking the charms that she wanted to use on me. Then she told me to get inside this other plastic dish that was full of water, but this water, it was really smelly. It made her bedroom to be really smelly, and I had actually told her that her bedroom was really smelly. And she told me that when she had saw me walking with that boy, she had returned back home as quickly as possible, and she had took that dish and filled it up with water, and she had actually pooped into that water, and she wanted me to bath myself with the water that contained her poo. And I refused, and she said, if you love this boy, then you are going to do this. I want you to bath yourself with my poo so that I can start to work on you, so that whatever that you are going to tell this boy is going to do it for you. My grandmother then revealed to me that this boy, what he had seen in a vision was that this boy that I was in love with there in the city, he was in love with another. So we needed to work on his mind so that he can always be mine. So I then got into that plastic dish. Then I started to wash myself with my grandmother's poo. And after I was done, my grandmother then told me that I had to perform more rituals. And after I had performed more rituals, then my grandmother said, "It is now done. Anything that you want, it is going to happen." My grandmother then taught me how to use like your ashes to call my boyfriend. She then sent me to the kitchen. So I went to the kitchen and I collected some ashes from the fireplace, and I returned back with those ashes in my hand, and then I showed the ashes to my grandmother. She told me to go outside and call the name of this boyfriend of mine. So that is what I did. I went outside, then I started to call out his name, and I said, "Come here, come here. As I am blowing these ashes into the wind, please can you come here, because I am missing you." Within a couple of minutes, I saw him. He was sweating all over as he was running to our compound. He then came and he asked for some tools. So after they had given this boy the tools that he was asking for, then my grandmother looked at me and she said, "Where are your manners, child? Why don't you accompany our visitor, and then you will return back after you would have accompanied him?" So I then started to walk with him, and he said that he actually wanted to spend more time with me, and there was a place where he wanted me to accompany him to. So as we were walking, that was when he dragged me behind this other anthill, and he said that he wanted to make love to me. I was really happy, but I just pretended as if I was not in love with him. And the more that I pushed him away, the more that he just held me in his arms, and it was really nice. Made me to lie on the ground, and he made love to me by force, and I just pretended as if he was abusing me, but deep down in my heart I was really happy. After he had made love to me, he then said, "Today I am going to make you my wife." So he took me by force to his parents. I was refusing, but I was really excited because this was like the love of my life, the man that I had loved since high school, and now I was his wife just like that. That is how I started staying with my husband. So he then returned back to the city, and when I saw that I had fallen pregnant, usually what I'll do is that whenever I felt like I wanted him to be with me, I'll just wait for everyone to fall asleep, then I would take some ashes from the fireplace, then I'll call out his name and I'll say, "My dear husband, you have spent so much time away from home. I want you to return back home." Then the following morning he would call me or his father, and he will tell his father to inform me that he was on his way returning back to the village. The other thing that my grandmother made me to do was that she made me to steal my husband's underwear, and after I had stolen my husband's underwear, I then went and I visited my grandmother. So after we had performed the rituals, my grandmother made me to wear my husband's underwear on top of my head, and after that she placed a duke on top of that underwear, and she told me to return back home. But the problem was that I was scared that people were going to notice that I actually was wearing an underwear, my husband's underwear, on top of my head. So my grandmother then gave me a pile of firewood, and she said, "Here, place it on top of your head." When I returned back home, indeed I saw that my in-laws and my husband, they were sitting together. So when they saw me with a huge pile of firewood, my father-in-law said, "Indeed, I can see that, my son, you made the correct decision in life. For look at your wife. She has taken that responsibility without anyone sending her to go and collect some firewood in the mountains. She has done it all by herself, when the rest of us are here just sitting down." So when my husband came to assist me, because this was like a heavy load of firewood, I then refused, because I knew that if he was going to see that, he was going to notice that I actually had his underwear on my head underneath that duke that I was using to hide this underwear. Then I just said, "It is fine," and I told him to go and sit down, because I didn't want his parents to feel as if I was disrespecting my own husband. So I went to the place where we used to keep the firewood, and I just offloaded this pile of firewood that I was carrying on my head as quickly as possible. I removed the duke as well as my husband's underwear. I then quickly rushed back to the kitchen and I gave my husband and my in-laws some water to drink so that they won't suspect anything. So this is the rituals that my grandmother did for me, and this is the reason as to why I am married to my husband. I still do this stuff. It is just that here in South Africa, where me and my husband are staying, it is very difficult because at the place where we are staying, it is not allowed to light a fire. So what I do is that whenever I am missing my husband, I just light this fire in my room. What I do is that I just take some newspapers or any paper, then I'll burn that paper in my room. Then after that, I'll take the ashes when everyone is fast asleep. Then I would go outside. Then I'll start to call my husband's name, telling him how much I miss him. Even when he is in Zim busy sorting maybe his papers out, he will just return back without completing that process. As long as I am missing him, then I know that he's going to be with me. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by our dear sister. Strange things do happen in this world. Just imagine walking around wearing your husband's underwear on your head for the sake of love.